I am 25 years old. I have I had what's called adhesion-related disorder. There should be a link somewhere in the description box if you're interested in finding out what that is. When I had been surgery at birth, I was 7 days old when they performed the first operation. Turns out that I was born with bowel obstruction, and long story short, they went in and they fixed it. I was having issues on and off throughout my childhood that just kind of went undiagnosed. Nobody could really answer it or anything like that. So what ended up happening is I lived with it. What can you do? And then when I was 17, I was rushed to the emergency room to find out that I had a bowel obstruction due to the scar tissue, the adhesions that were caused from that operation or those operations, and that started my very long journey from there. And it was difficult because I was only 17. I thought I was gonna die then. I was really worried, and when we left the hospital a week and a half later, I was assured that everything was okay, that I shouldn't have to have another surgery for another few years, several years is what the doctor actually said. He was like, the chances of them coming back are pretty high, but he didn't by any means lead me to believe that there was no chance whatsoever. So I resumed normal activity. I was a very active child. So I still continued to participate in marching band and things like that. And then a year or so later, I started feeling off, and I couldn't quite figure it out. So I started doing a little bit of research, and I kind of poked and I prodded, and so I sucked it up, and things were fine. And then I want to say months after that, I really started to have some more issues, and I contacted the doctor who performed the first surgery, and that just kind of started the road. That started the road to the next 8 years. I underwent several tests because he didn't want to go ahead and just operate and try to figure out where the pain was coming from. He wanted to figure out if there was anything that we could do prior to surgery. So they ran tests on everything. I had blood tests done. I had urine cultures done. They did an all abdomen scans, and unfortunately, back clear. He was like, well, you are in a lot of pain, and instead of making you go through this, let's just go ahead and operate. And I have had all of my operations on the right-hand side. The majority of them, not all of them, but the majority of them have been on the right-hand side. And we had to go in and fix it. They had done a hernia repair a few years prior, so again, that was another surgery on the right-hand side. And they ended up determining, that all my pain was from the adhesions that had grown on, particularly on the right side of my abdomen. And he went in, he removed them. We tried discussing any kind of barriers or anything like that. Unfortunately, this doctor refused to do any kind of barriers. He felt that they were inadequate and that any barriers posed too high of a risk to go ahead and do anything. We also tried talking to him about maybe doing laparoscopic surgery. Again, he refused. He was saying that it would be too difficult and that my abdomen would prevent it. I'll get to that in a little bit, but it was kind of off-putting that he insisted on doing a full laparotomy, and I ended up with another scar. He did use the previous scars, but again, it's a 12-inch scar across my abdomen. It's another one. So he went in and he did perform the surgery. Everything went swimmingly. I felt okay coming out. After this surgery, I knew I just knew, you kind of get a feeling that something's still not right. After that surgery, it just wasn't right. So I had had a few issues while I was still in the hospital, but they still sent me home. I was readmitted, several times, and then it seems like it was an ongoing battle from there. And then I spent the next several times in and out of the hospital ERs, and from there I was still left with a whole bunch of unanswered questions and a whole bunch of other issues that we were unable to resolve. And it just seemed like everything was just caving. So I want to say 3-4 times a month. It was like almost weekly. It was a weekly occurrence to go to the hospital. The ER would give me medication. They'd send me home. There's nothing wrong with you. Maybe you should talk to your primary care physician. And then it's like, no, there's nothing they could do. So, I mean, honestly, the next 5 years from there, it was the same song and dance. It was the same thing, in and out of hospitals, seeing doctor after doctor. Nobody really wanted to give me an answer. They were like, well, everything's fine. We went to see GI doctors. We traveled to see other doctors. And again, they all ran their tests, and they were all, well, you look fine to us. We have no idea as to what's going on. Well, from there, we ended up I felt like I lost hope. So I got online, and I was lucky enough to find Karen. And the whole reason I found Karen was actually because Karen found me. I had started this Facebook group, which everybody now knows, as far as the Find a Cure ARD. That was definitely something I started, and I did that because I wanted somebody to relate to. All the online searches that I had done left me with nothing. I had nobody to talk to. I had family, but honestly, the family that I have never experienced anything like this, so who's to blame them? But everything just, it really seemed like it was crumbling down, and then Karen found me, and we started talking, and I started following up about Dr. Krasinski, and then one thing led to another, and I started talking to him, and I kind of dropped a few hints to my parents, like, hey, this is what I found, and then my mom and I would sit there, and we would do research on it, and we would talk about it, and that's all it was just all talk for a few years, actually. And then I was diagnosed, I was hospitalized again, but this time they decided to admit me. So I was admitted to the hospital, and they found out that I had a bowel obstruction due to adhesions, and they pretty much decided that they weren't going to operate. They thought it was the adhesions, but they refused to still operate because of the fact that they were adhesions. So from there, I left the hospital crying. My mom and I had countless nights crying because it's like, well, what do we do from here? Nobody wants to work with me. Nobody wanted to help me. And they pretty much told me to seek pain management and to not eat ever again. I was put on a liquid diet, and a lot of people in my support group, they understand what a liquid diet is, and it really sucks. So it's really hard to believe that a doctor would advise that you go on a liquid diet and pain medication infinitely. Well, I heeded their advice, and I went out and sought pain management, and I spent the next 4 years on a concoction of drugs that I was even surprised that they had prescribed me. They put me on large doses of fentanyl. They put me on large doses of oxycodone. And then they had me on a antispasmodic or an anti-seizure medication. All of which I had to take 3 times daily. And on top of the liquid diet, I was a walking zombie. I was still in pain, so it's not like it really helped. Upside, I lost weight. Ultimately, it didn't fix anything. It made the matters worse because all of the narcotics, what they do is they slow bowels down, and that's really not something that any adhesion patient needs, is any kind of interference with abdominal issues. So they insisted that I continue to take my medication, and then every time I went, which I was going sometimes once to twice a month, they would up my dose. And so when they ran out of things to do, they started trying to do nerve blocks. Unfortunately, nerve blocks didn't help. Physical therapy, I ended up dropping just under $4,000 in physical therapy that I only went to for about 2 months, and all of that left me just deeper in debt. We ended up doing a little bit further research on Dr. Krasinski, and I sat down and I told my mom that, and I told my parents, I was like, this is what's got to happen. Nobody else wanted to touch me, and it's ironic because I really didn't have that many surgeries, but just because I had been suffering for so long, nobody really wanted to touch me. I continued to reach out to Doctor for the next 2 years. He and I had talked back and forth for 2 years, and I was in and out of the hospital. I mean, I couldn't maintain a work ethic with that. So I ended up leaving, and I spent the next several months right here, laying on the couch, taking my medication, and being a zombie, not doing anything. I started losing my hair. I had about a good old palm size of hair gone. You can see that. My hand's kind of small. But I ended up losing quite a bit because I couldn't eat anything. My face broke out. I looked like I had a whole rash on the side of my face just from the fact that I couldn't eat. I was in a really dark place. I had gotten super depressed. I spent all day alone in the house. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go out anywhere because every time I would go out, I would have an attack. Any kind of a movement or anything like that would just start all the pain, and it radiated throughout my body. I was basically incapable of doing anything on my own. Anytime we went to the store, I had to have my husband there because it was a joke. I ended up speaking with my mom a few times and my dad a few times, and we would meet, and it would just be a nightmare. Every time I wanted to go do a family event, it was almost impossible. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't stand for too long without feeling anything. And then if I did eat, I would spend the next several hours curled up in a ball, crying or puking. I couldn't eat anything without vomiting. I resorted to not eating and living on my couch. And then my wonderful parents came forward. One day I was having a really rough time, and my mom called me, and she was like, pack your bags. You're going to Germany. And it's still really emotional to talk about it because the feats that they have gone through to make me where I am now have been just great. I traveled to Germany October, so happy 1 year. This is my 1 year video. I traveled to Germany in October of 2012, and I had my first surgery October 8th. And words cannot describe waking up out of that first surgery. I felt renewed. I felt like I had a new a new lease on life. I knew immediately walking out of that surgery that this one was different. And what was so different was I did not have a surgery that was a laparotomy. It was all done with keyhole surgery, or keyhole incisions. And granted, waking up from surgery, you don't always feel that great. But when I woke up this time, I knew right away that there was something so different about this surgery. Unfortunately, I did not like the flipping aspect, because you have to lay on one side and flip every hour, left and right. But once that was done, once I was able to move around and lay on my back, I tried laying on my stomach 3 days. I was 3 days post-op, and I could lay on my stomach. I had not been able to lay on my stomach without being in complete agony for almost 24 years. It was amazing. I was astounded by the nursing staff in Germany, Dr. Kruszinski's skilled hands, his willingness to understand and care for each and every patient. Granted, it was very difficult for me to go over there, but at the end of the day, it was very worth it. I was very thankful enough to have my husband there, who, he's a great guy, he really is. He was there for everything. Even he said something when I woke up out of surgery. He was like, wow, this just seems like a completely different you. I've seen you from all the other hospital stays, and you seem different. You had color in your face. I didn't have the black circles under my eyes. I enjoyed eating. I woke up with an appetite. I was ravenous. And from there, it was amazing. I had this whole new lease on life, and while I was there, I met some really great people who I still am thankful enough to know today. I'm very thankful that I met Christine. I know that today's actually her birthday, so I wanted to say happy birthday, Christine. I know that that if I was there alone, I probably would not have had nearly as much of an emotional healing as I have had physically healing. My husband and I bonded as well while we were over there. I bonded with Kelly, Kelly Coffey. If you have not seen her video, I recommend seeing it. It's really cute. She did a great job on it. But I can't say that my life would have been different if I had not gone over there, because my life would have been the same. I would still be sitting here in complete agony. I would probably not have any hair. Oh, and I probably would not be expecting my first child. We are due February 2014. Again, that was another feat that I had spoke to a few doctors about, and they pretty much told me that don't risk it. So I'm very thankful that I'm able to have the life I have now, and things have changed in so many ways. I have a new life. I have a job that I actually look forward to going to, and I have a renewed spirit. I go back and I think about all those difficult times that I had in my previous years, and it's completely depressing, because if I sit there and think about it, I really just get frustrated, and I turn into this deep, dark, depressed person. And that's what I tried so hard not to do with this video, was make myself seem like I'm a really better person now, and I really am. It was just the difficult time of getting out of that rut that I was in with the pain and the all the drugs that I was on and everything like that. And coming off of those was horrible, and I really hope to God that nobody else has to go through that, because I thought I was making the pain go away, and they were all prescribed. Doctors gave me prescriptions to take all of those medications, and again, don't trust what your doctor says. In my opinion, you're always supposed to question your doctor, because if you don't question your doctor, who will? I was very thankful that I have a doctor who just happens to be just a few thousand miles away, but I don't question him. I have been completely pain-free for the last year. I have not had a single issue, not once. I've had what's called phantom pains, but again, I think it was really all in my head, and they thankfully went away. Now all I feel in my abdomen is my baby kick, and that's just an amazing feeling. But anybody that really needs the help, anybody that really knows that there's nothing else out there for them, trust me, there's always more out there. And here's to my 1 year adhesion-related disorder free. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, I try to stay on top of Facebook as much as possible. Mind you, I get bombarded sometimes with a lot of messages and emails and things like that. So please feel free. I'll leave all of that information on the description bar. But thank you for all of my loyal supporters, and I really do love each and every one of you, and just remember that there's always hope.